This week on Motoring 90.
When you're into British cars, there's nothing, North American cars don't appeal anymore.
And you can see that the front half of this glass has a lot of distortion. The water's just sheeting, and the back half, the water just beads right off, and we can see quite clearly.
Motoring 90 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Hello everybody and welcome to Motoring 90. Do you recognize this car? Well, you may not because there's only about 1,400 of them in the world. This is a collector's item. We'll learn more about it later on. But first, we're going to join Steve Grant. He has a story about the rules of the road and the men and women who enforce them.
You can call it what you like, the McDonald-Cartier Freeway or just the good old 401. This stretch of highway that runs between Windsor and Montreal is the busiest you'll find anywhere. 300,000 cars pass by here every day, and it's a real job to keep things moving safely. Of course, traffic isn't just restricted to Ontario, but anyone who has traveled through, past, or just near Toronto knows just how congested and downright dangerous the surrounding highways are getting. The speed limit on the 401, for example, is listed at 100 kilometers an hour, but unless you're doing at least 115, you might as well be standing still. But is speed the major concern?
We say that speed kills, and it does, in the sense that the higher the speed, the more violent the collision that can result as a result of some error in driving. As well, you'll see from data collected by Ministry of Transport through accidents reports submitted by us and by other police agencies that speed is an element in almost half of the accidents occur in this province. That's not to say the vehicle was exceeding the speed limit, but that the speed was too great for the circumstances that existed at that time.
The statistics are downright scary. So far this year, more than 61,000 accidents in Ontario alone. 27,000 people have been injured, and 702 people have lost their lives. And believe it or not, some people still aren't wearing seatbelts.
About 30% of all the people who have died in accidents investigated by the OPP this year were ejected from their vehicle.
Yeah, we're 10-8 with Bradford Productions on our general patrol, 10-4.
The sheer number of accidents makes it tough on the patrolling officers. Because of manpower and hours in the day, they spend more time reacting to accidents rather than trying to prevent them. I noticed just driving here for the few minutes that the general speed of all the traffic around us has slowed down because they know that there's a police car here. Is that maybe one way to control the speed, just have more police cars on the road?
It certainly is a deterrent. People see a marked police cruiser, or even we're in an unmarked unit right now, but certainly they pick up and see it to be and recognize it to be a police vehicle, and it is a deterrent. Not many people will go speeding past a police cruiser.
Police cars and radar go hand in hand, and the OPP is no exception. In fact, here in Ontario, there's talk of doubling and in some cases tripling the fines handed out to speeders. And what about new drivers? Well, the brass here at the OPP have some suggestions to make the rules a little tougher for those who just got their license.
In terms of alternate programs, we all believe that there should be changes to the driver licensing system, and perhaps there should be gradations of license. For example, a brand new driver perhaps should only be permitted to drive during daylight hours for the first 6 months, and after 6 months, in other words with some experience, then the license is expanded to other areas. Many of us will probably have driven in the States, and as you cross into some states there are huge signs announcing the speeds and the fines that go with speeding offenses over there. Well, they seem to have a dramatic impact on most of us. We think, holy cow, that's a lot of bucks, and we tend to slow down. So I think increasing fines here could have that same effect too. Fine, of course, isn't of any value unless there's an enforcement activity that goes along with it.
This particular case, we're in an 80 kilometer per hour zone, and I've set the speed to make an audio sound at 95 kilometers or better. Someone says they're tired, they've worked a long day, they just want to get home as fast as they can. And I can never realize why they would be speeding if they're tired, because all their senses and just their attitude for driving, certainly because of the fatigue, would make driving a little bit more hazardous to them, yet they think if they get home faster, they'll be home safer and can get some sleep.
Well, I think that we have to be fair and say that the quality of vehicle is probably better today than it has ever been. So I can't really criticize the automotive manufacturers for the quality of their vehicles. while certainly a big engine in a small car is a temptation and can lead to difficulties, the issue still is the person behind the wheel. And that has to be the focus of our attention, is getting them to be more responsible about how they use that horsepower and how they use their vehicle. And that will be our focus of attention.
When Motoring 90 returns, Acura for the driving blues. Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
The 1990 Acura Integra is advertised as being bred from Formula One stock. This week on Test Drive, we're going to find out if that is fact or fiction.
The Integra features an advanced independent suspension setup that gives the car superior handling characteristics. When pushed through the pylons, the car responded predictably with a nice neutral feel. As the suspension is tuned on the firm side, the ride becomes a little uncomfortable on broken pavement, but at highway speeds it has a stable feel that inspires confidence. I would prefer a little less assist from the power steering. Reducing the amount of assist would have improved the feedback immensely. Well, we just accomplished a 100k sprint in about 9.2 seconds. And when you bear in mind that this car features an automatic transmission, that's very respectable indeed. Honda developed their own anti-lock brake system, which during our test proved to be as good as any, with stops averaging a commendable 106 feet from 80 kilometers an hour. If there were a criticism, it would be with the amount of kickback felt through the pedal. For some, the amount may be disconcerting. The Integra's new automatic transmission features 3 modes: Sport 3, Sport 4 and Drive. In either of the Sport modes, each gear is held a little longer to improve acceleration. Drive is basically to improve economy. The unit in our test car left a bit to be desired. Under light to moderate acceleration, the upshifts were abrupt and uncoordinated, almost as though the transmission was not quite sure which gear it was supposed to be in. Under harder acceleration conditions, though, the shift did smooth out. The Integra, like most automatics, features a shift lock, meaning you can't shift out of park till you put your foot firmly on the brake. However, unlike most, you can actually shift from neutral into drive without your foot on the brake. Typical of a lot of recent Honda products, the driver is seated low down. This, combined with a very low hood line, makes the car feel a bit like a sophisticated go-kart. Now, this is not a criticism because it makes the driver feel almost a part of the car. A well-deserved 10 to the designers for dumping the pop-up headlights and incorporating some very attractive flush-fitting units. I like the idea that you must use the ignition key to release either side of the split folding rear seat. This, combined with the lock on the remote trunk release, keeps your parcels nice and safe. Honda have built a reputation for their dashboards. They're clean, clear and very legible. The Integra is a model example. The heater worked well on the whole, but the rotary dial made fine-tuning of the system a little awkward. Generally, the slide-type controls work better. If you happen to be 5'10" or over, you're going to find the amount of headroom in the 1990 Integra somewhat on the tight side. I kept finding my head bashing the edge of the sunroof here. Let's now go to the scoreboard and find out what I thought of the rest of the 1990 Integra. The Integra's 1.8-litre engine is peppy once you reach the power band, but it is a little lacking in low-end torque. On the whole, though, a flexible engine that loves to rev, and it is a definite improvement over last year's 1.6-litre unit. The Honda-developed anti-lock brake system worked to near perfection during testing. The stops were straight and unflustered, with only a little bit of kickback felt in the pedal. The new Integra is very proficient in the handling department. Honda's sophisticated independent wishbone suspension walks that fine line between comfort and performance very nicely. Because the engine works best higher up in the rev range, there is quite a lot of engine noise evident nearly all the time. Wind noise, on the other hand, is almost non-existent. We average 33 miles per gallon or 8.6 litres per 100 kilometres. Very respectable given the overall performance. a definite improvement over last year's Integra. The handling characteristics and high-end performance offered by the engine give this Integra the much sought-after ingredients needed to be a cut above the competition.
You're looking at the 1967 Dino Fiat Spider in a beautiful fall setting, and joining me right now is Paul Salonen from Caliber Motors in Toronto. And Paul, when I first saw this in your showroom, I knew it wasn't just an average car. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, you're right. It's a 67 Fiat Dino Spider. There's about just under 2,000 of these cars produced, but I'm aware that there's about 1,400 left in existence.
Tell me a little bit about what's under the hood.
It's a 2-liter V6 Dino engine, which is a Ferrari engine, and it produces about 175 horsepower. Most of the buyers that would want to buy this car, they know what the car is all about, and they've obviously read up on the history of the car, what it does, the speeds it can obtain, the horsepower and whatnot, and they come in, they see the car, they know what they want to buy. They ask the price, and I say, we're asking $95,000. In the States, in the Ferrari market letter, these cars are selling for about $90,000 to $100,000 US in a car in this condition.
It's a collector's.
It's a collector's car.
Well, obviously we don't need our wipers on a beautiful day like today, but when the weather does get miserable, you can't drive without them. And standing by right now is our resident mechanic on Motoring 90, Bill Gardiner. His subject this week, the wipers.
Well, you're right, Brad. The wiper system is a very important system. We tend to sort of take it for granted on today's cars because it is a very reliable system. On this Oldsmobile, we can see the wiper transmission linkage, the arms, the wiper motor and washer pump assembly quite easily. And we're going to give you a neat little tip for repairing a cracked washer bottle. It's quite a common problem on today's cars. And we're going to finish up with a neat tip for treating your side glass, the driver's side and passenger side glass, with a chemical that will repel rain and sleet for improved visibility. Now I'm going to reach in and install these wipers in mid-sweep. Right there, I'm holding the wipers stalled. Now, if this system was protected only by a fuse, that would have blown the fuse, and a situation like that could leave you without wipers when you need them most. So the motor itself is protected by a circuit breaker. That breaker allows the motor to be stalled when it encounters an obstruction and then work again immediately following cleaning of that obstruction. The circuitry is, however, protected by a fuse inside the car. The switch terminals and the light wiring to the switch is protected by a fuse, but the motor itself is on a circuit breaker. There's also a park relay incorporated in the motor that prevents the motor from shutting off just anywhere on the windshield. When you turn the switch off, it completes a sweep, goes down and parks. That relay is incorporated in the motor, and it's a fairly easy part to change. Now, it's not uncommon for these plastic windshield washer bottles to split. They're mounted to the fender, and in the cold weather, they kind of shrink in a little bit, and the car goes down the road and flexes. They tend to crack right where they're mounted. You might think that it's better just to replace that bottle. They're not a lot of money, but it's actually better to fix the old one, because once they've cracked, they've sort of stress relieved. You can clean it out, dump out all the old fluid, wash it out with warm water, dry it out, and then force some silicone sealant. A tube of this is available in any hardware store. Force the silicone in through the crack and allow it to harden. It's fixed for good then. This area of the car gets quite clogged with dirt and debris, you can see here. It's a good idea to clean out the jet periodically, the windshield washer jet itself. You can use a shipping tag. The tag wire from that is just perfect for cleaning out these little jets. You can actually bend the jet itself to aim it to the proper spot on the windshield. If it tends to put out a stream rather than a spray, you can actually pinch the jet down a little bit with a pair of side cutters or a small pair of pliers to make that spray fan out a little bit better. There's a number of different types and styles of wiper blades. This particular car has a winter blade on it right now. It's a metal blade that's jacketed with a rubber cover to prevent ice and snow from freezing on it. Some drivers really prefer those. The best blades are a stainless steel blade like this. You can see this one is a bright finish. They also come in black. These blades are high quality blade, and they're easily refillable when the rubber strip wears out. You can just pinch the little bayonet in the end and pull it right out. You can buy a pair of strips. They're less than the price of one new blade. Slide them in. Works like new again. The actual wiper arm itself is made of stainless steel material, sometimes painted black. Underneath this cover where you can't see is a spring that tensions the wiper arm against the windshield to make the wiper work properly. On this particular car, it has hideaway wipers, but on cars where the wipers park on the windshield. You have to be careful that this doesn't become damaged when cleaning the windshield or going through an automatic car wash. Now obviously we don't have a wiper system that can clean the side glass of a car, but it's very important that you have good visibility through this side glass. At an intersection or a crossroads trying to merge in with traffic, it's very important to have good undistorted visibility through there, and that's difficult to achieve at night and in the rain. Now we've treated the back half of this glass with a special chemical that's widely available at auto parts stores. We're going to flood it down just like it would be in a rainstorm, and you can see that the front half of this glass has a lot of distortion. The water's just sheeting, and the back half, the water just beads right off and we can see quite clearly. This is going to be a tremendous boost for you, a safe driving tip, very important thing that you should try in your car when you winterize your car. I guarantee if you've ever tried this product, you're going to love it, and you're going to want to do all the glass on your car. You'll see much more clearly. Until next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 90.
Still ahead on Motoring 90. Only in Britain, you say.
The sweet sounds of this 1967 Dino Fiat Spider. You know, recently we received an invitation to a celebration. They said the only requirement was a stiff upper lip. Well, Sandra Neal's curiosity was aroused, off she went, and now here she is with her story.
Wondering if it's just a coincidence that all the vehicles lined up in this parking lot are sporting British marquees? Well, it's not. Actually, it's British Car Day in Toronto. What started off 6 years ago as a gathering for Toronto Triumph Club members has now mushroomed into an annual event that attracts British vehicles from across Ontario and the United States. Hundreds of British-made automobiles and their connoisseurs headed in a caravan to gather in Oakville, Ontario. The day would turn out to be one of the largest displays of British metal in Canada. Clubs from across Ontario enjoyed an atmosphere that resembled an afternoon along the English countryside, with picnic lunches and man's best friend in tow. The attraction for you to own a Morgan?
Oh, just the style. And it's fun to drive. A little uncomfortable, but fun. When you're into British cars, there's nothing, North American cars don't appeal anymore.
There were lesser-known models on display like the Jupiter and the Jensen. But car enthusiasts who backed the Union Jack were bowled over by the appearance of an XKD Jaguar, even if the D-Type was a replica.
It's very tight, very precise. It goes exactly where you point it. It's very powerful for the weight that it has. We're producing, we think, about 275 horsepower, 1,500 weight, all aluminum body. It's a rocket. It's a car that I have always dreamed of owning. It's the car that I think made Jaguar in the 50s and allowed them to continue on to where we have them today. An original one has just sold at an auction in Monaco, and it didn't have a particularly good history, but it was a real one. It sold for over £1 million sterling, which is approximately 2 million Canadian dollars. This car is probably worth in the region of 100 to 150,000.
What do you think it is about British models that draws so many people to them?
They're unique in so many ways. Their styling is not at all the norm. They're all just so different and unique in their own right that, I don't know. I've always been a die-hard British car fan.
The cutest car on display was the Mini. Dozens of Austin Minis celebrated their 30th birthdays and found a new fan this year from Oakville.
Yeah, that probably had a bearing upon it. And also I read articles about them going to Japan now, and it's supposed to be the in thing in Paris for the ladies to drive around in a Mini.
Top marks for the most amusing car is actually not considered a car at all, but a scooter. It's a 1960 Messerschmitt. And by the way, the snakeskin interior isn't just the owner's fancy. It came with the model. Peter, this is incredible. This is kind of something you only see in the books. How did you acquire this baby?
Well, actually, it's a pretty rare car in Canada. I found it in a farmer's field in Chatham. It was a totally rusted out derelict hulk with a tree growing through the middle of it.
Could you believe your eyes?
No, I've been looking for one of these actually for since I was a little kid, and they're pretty rare in Canada. So when I saw that, I've got to have it, no matter what condition.
Even if you don't have a passion for British models, you'd be hard-pressed not to find British Car Day fascinating. Perhaps it would be your only opportunity to experience a vehicle like this 1962 Daimler. I'm Sandra Neal for Motoring 90.
Does your car make you sick? Well, this could be the time to put the Gravol away. The Neutral Auto anti-travel discomfort device might be just the gizmo for you. Despite what you may think, it's not the motion that makes you nauseous or fatigued. It's electromagnetic radiation produced by your engine. Neutral Auto claims to block out the radiation by emitting an ultra-shortwave signal. No power source needed. Just place the checker-like discs on your dashboard. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Neutral Auto is approved by the Ministry of Health in France. But what does Motoring 90 think about it? Kenzies Corner with Jim Kenzie.
Nobody has more fun at car shows than the Japanese. Just check out this jacket. And if you think that all Japanese cars are boring lookalikes, you should check out the Tokyo Motor Show. You have teeny-weeny convertibles with turbocharged, intercooled, double overhead camshaft engines, and four-wheel drive sports cars with technology that would put a Formula One Grand Prix car to shame. And all this in a country where on a 6.5 hour drive through the outskirts of Tokyo, I managed to cover a grand total of 120 kilometers, an average of under 20 clicks an hour. That's why the Japanese write the specifications all over the side of the car, so when they're stuck in traffic, they can point to the 12-valve twin-cam turbo GTX X stickers and say to the car next to them, "Okay, sushi breath, top that!" The Tokyo show is almost famous for another kind of show model. Every Japanese girl over 5'5" in height is kidnapped from her grade 10 classroom, dressed in an outrageous costume, and put up on a stand to talk about some car or other. And like show bimbos the world over, they haven't a clue what they're talking about. But they sure look good. So that's the Tokyo Motor Show. Mind you, by the time you see this, the 1989 show will be history, and the next one won't happen until 1991. So start saving your yen. This is Jim Kenzie reporting from the Tokyo Motor Show for Motoring 90.
Well, that's it for this edition of Motoring 90. We want to thank Caliber Motors of Toronto for letting us use this 1967 Dino Fiat Spider. And if you happen to have an automobile you think would look great on the show, why don't you drop us a line to Motoring 90, 379 Danforth Avenue, Toronto, Ontario. The postal code is M4K1P1. Well, it's now time to go for a beautiful drive on a beautiful afternoon, and we'll see you next week for more of Motoring 90.
Motoring 90 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.